Every organization runs a ranking system no one admits exists. You're being sorted, not by title, not by performance, by how the room adjusts when you speak. Some people bend meetings. Some wait to be validated. That difference isn't confidence, it's leverage. And if you feel competent but overlooked, you're not underperforming. You're operating from a lower tier than you realize. This video breaks down the mechanism behind that tier and how to shift it without asking for permission. You feel this when you start explaining more than others, when your tone softens mid-sentence, when you offer disclaimers before proposals. Small shifts, micro-adjustments. You call it professionalism, but it's positional behavior, and positional behavior reveals rank. Let's define it clearly. Hidden hierarchy is simple. No one announces it.
No one votes on it, but everyone feels it. Some people speak to decide. Others speak to be accepted. Watch the difference. One voice lands and the room adjusts. Another voice lands and waits for reaction. High-status individuals do not scan for approval. They assume space. The system rewards those who appear less dependent on it. And the moment you signal need for validation, inclusion, reassurance, your leverage thins. This is not about personality. It's about position. Position is communicated before content. Here's the truth you avoid admitting. I want to be seen as competent. That sounds harmless. It isn't. Because when your identity depends on being seen, you become negotiable. Negotiable frame. You enter discussions trying to prove. They enter discussions assuming. That difference writes your access ledger. There is no spreadsheet, but the record is kept. Who gets invited before the meeting is announced? Who hears the change before it's official? Who can push back without consequence? It is not democratic. It is cumulative. And every time you over-explain, over-accommodate, over-deliver without boundary, you pay approval tax. Approval tax is not extra work. It is authority erosion. The system doesn't punish you loudly. It just stops deferring. Do speak in finished statements, not exploratory apologies. Do pause after proposals, not fill silence to soothe discomfort. Do let others clarify your meaning, not rush to preempt criticism. You think tension is dangerous. It isn't. Tension is information. Watch what happens in meetings. One person says something half-formed. No one challenges. Another offers something precise. 3 people interrogate. That isn't about quality. It's about perceived jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is the psychological territory you're allowed to occupy without resistance. When you violate perceived rank, the system corrects you. Not through punishment, through friction. Subtle resistance, more scrutiny, fewer allies. Here's a case. Quarterly review meeting. You present strong numbers. Another colleague presents average performance. Yet when strategic decisions arise, leadership looks at them, not you. You feel the shift. You start adding context, more slides, more justifications. You believe competence will fix it, so you work harder. They work fewer words. It won't. Because you're competing on output in a hierarchy governed by perceived sovereignty. Verdict forming? You are ranked lower than your performance. Why? Because rank signals are behavioral, not numerical. Let's strip it down. Rank signals are small, almost invisible. Calm disagreement, controlled silence, selective participation. Moments where others look to you before speaking. The ones who appear least dependent on harmony appear hardest to replace. And those who look hardest to replace are managed carefully. If you appear eager to align, you appear eager to stay. And those eager to stay are easier to manage. I want them to choose me. That motive shrinks posture. Even if you hide it, even if you polish it. The system reads microsignals.
This is not paranoia. It's pattern recognition. Do disagree once per strategic discussion. Not aggressively, precisely. Do decline low-value tasks once weekly. Not everything, selectively.
Do allow minor misunderstandings to stand temporarily. Not every perception requires correction. You think this sounds manipulative. It isn't. It's structural literacy. Machiavelli warned rulers, appearing self-sufficient increases loyalty. The same applies in organizations. Dependency lowers perceived rank. Now we make it practical. Structure. The invisible rank protocol. Access mapping. Notice who gets information early. Notice who is referenced when absent. Reaction audit. Who interrupts safely? Whose humor lands without effort? Jurisdiction claim. Choose one domain. Speak there without hedging for 30 days. Silence leverage. Cut verbal filler. Let pauses breathe. Approval withdrawal. Stop signaling agreement reflexively. Neutral face. Measured response. This is not aggression. It is recalibration. Because hidden hierarchy punishes eagerness.
Let's address the third avoided motive. I want to avoid shame. Shame avoidance creates overcompliance. Overcompliance creates invisible demotion. You don't get fired, you get sidelined. That's worse, because sidelining is quiet. No announcement, no confrontation. Just slower replies, fewer invitations. Your name is missing from early drafts. This is how the access ledger updates. Silently. You mistake absence of conflict for safety. But absence of conflict often means absence of threat. And threat is what creates rank. There's something you haven't named yet. Perceived replaceability. It's the system asking one silent question. If this person disappeared tomorrow, would anything slow down? You respond quickly. You fix mistakes immediately.
You adapt to everyone's preferences. You integrate smoothly. So smoothly that your absence would not disrupt rhythm. You become operationally useful, but politically light. And light people are moved easily. Here's the uncomfortable trade. If your presence reduces tension too efficiently, your absence won't create it. Hierarchy responds to perceived disruption risk, not effort. Now watch the microdynamics. Someone challenges a senior leader. The room goes still, but nothing happens. Why? Because that person has accumulated jurisdiction. Jurisdiction isn't loudness, it's tolerated deviation. If you challenge in the same tone, correction arrives instantly. That's not personality bias, that's invisible rank enforcement. Machiavelli observed that power protects those who project inevitability. Inevitability is the opposite of eagerness. When you subtly seek reassurance after speaking, you lower inevitability. Reassurance signals fear, and fear is readable. Now let's tighten the lens. There are 3 levels inside every organization. At the top are the people whose words bend timelines. Deadlines move around them. Below them sit the reliable operators, respected but scheduled. And at the bottom are the stabilizers. They absorb pressure, they smooth tension, they make everyone else comfortable. If you are constantly managing emotion instead of direction, you are not operating at the top tier. Harmony feels noble, but it rarely converts into authority. Let's expose another avoided motive. I want to avoid being disliked. That motive keeps you in emotional utility. You absorb extra work to prevent discomfort. You preemptively soften feedback.
You volunteer to close loops others left open. The system rewards you with appreciation, not elevation. Appreciation is not rank, it's containment. Now here's the sharper edge. When layoffs happen, who survives? Not always the most liked, not always the most productive, often the least psychologically negotiable. The one whose removal would create structural instability. Instability increases leadership risk. Risk recalibrates hierarchy. Do this, not that. Do protect one high-visibility domain fiercely, not spread competence thin across 5. Do allow minor inefficiencies to surface publicly, not privately correct everything. Do state capacity limits early, not after burnout signals. You are not trying to become difficult. You are trying to become costly to displace. Cost is power, not financial cost, structural cost. When your absence creates decision delay, your rank rises. When your absence creates silence relief, your rank falls. Now let's examine another case. Cross-functional project. You coordinate between departments. You translate language. You resolve misunderstandings. You ensure deadlines hold. The project succeeds. Leadership praises the team. Your specific contribution dissolves into collective success. Meanwhile, one individual publicly challenged timeline assumptions early. They were initially resisted. But their challenge reframed expectations. Their name becomes associated with strategic foresight. You carried execution. They carried narrative. Narrative outranks execution. Because narrative alters perception of future risk. Hidden hierarchy privileges future risk managers over present problem solvers. If you want to shift tiers, you must move from execution to framing. Framing is upstream influence. Execution is downstream compliance. Now we shift upstream. Frame authority, not solving problems, defining what the problem is. You speak early, you narrow scope. You ask directional questions that force clarity. Ambiguity shrinks. Those who define the problem quietly own it. You risk visible disagreement. You accept short-term friction for long-term jurisdiction. This is the pivot most never make, because friction feels like danger, but friction is often promotion pressure. If you never generate it, you remain safe. Safe is stable. Stable is replaceable. Replaceable is rank limited. Now step back. You thought the hidden hierarchy was unfair. It's not moral. It's structural. Organizations optimize for predictability. Those who appear internally anchored become predictable at scale.
Those who signal emotional volatility become administratively risky. Your sovereign mindset is not arrogance. It is emotional containment. Containment produces gravity. Gravity produces deference. Deference produces access. And access compounds. This is the compounding effect of the access ledger. Small signals, repeated weekly, accumulating over years. You are not ranked by one meeting. You are ranked by pattern memory, which means you can reverse it, but only if you stop performing for inclusion and start operating from jurisdiction. And here is the part most people miss. You are not being ranked only for what you do. You are being ranked for how the system feels when you are present. Do conversations tighten? Do decisions slow down? Do people measure their words more carefully? Or does everything flow smoothly around you? Smooth is pleasant. Pleasant is manageable. Manageable rarely becomes powerful. If your presence never introduces productive tension, your ceiling has already been decided. Now, the mechanism deepens. When you over-participate, your nervous system shifts. Not dramatically, subtly. Your speech speeds up. You over-clarify.
You laugh sooner than you feel. In the presence of higher rank, your body seeks safety through affiliation, but affiliation signals dependence. Slow your speech by 15%. Remove upward inflection. Hold eye contact 1 second longer than comfort. Not dominance, stability. Rank flows toward stability. Now test it. 7 days. Day 1. Count how often you explain beyond necessity. Cut it in half tomorrow.
Day 2. Let one silence stretch longer than comfort. Day 3. Disagree once, no cushioning. Day 4. Decline one low-leverage request. Day 5. Speak first once. Day 6. End one conversation early. Day 7. Observe reactions, not feelings, reactions. Track interruption frequency, eye contact, task allocation, data only. Because we turn philosophy into self-mastery, not reflection. Experiment. But this isn't complete. There's a darker layer, and it explains why some highly competent people remain permanently mid-tier. We go there next. Hidden hierarchy does not reward the best contributor. It rewards the least dependent contributor. That's uncomfortable, because you were trained to be useful. Usefulness is not rank. It is extraction potential. Extract is when the system receives your effort without granting proportional authority. You become a reliable executor. You solve problems quickly. Reliability without boundary equals controllability. You become indispensable, but not promotable. This is the paradox. The more stable you make the system, the less it fears losing you, and fear of loss increases rank. Trade-off truth. Power costs comfort. If you want to rise in an invisible hierarchy, you must tolerate misinterpretation. Instead of, "I just wanted to add," say, "There's a strategic risk here." No soft entry. Instead of, "Does that make sense?" say, "That's the position." Let them process. Instead of, "I'm happy to help with that," say, "I can take that if it aligns with X priority." Condition your agreement. Conditioned access increases perceived value. Remember the access ledger. It updates constantly. Every concession, every boundary, every reaction receipt. Reaction receipt. Proof you reacted emotionally in a way that lowers perceived stability. Once issued, it circulates silently. Mid-level managers suffer here. They manage down. They appease up. They live in permanent negotiation. Negotiable frame. You must exit it. Not by force, by removal. Remove visible need. Remove visible fear. Remove visible overeagerness. Machiavelli wrote that it is safer to be respected than loved when both are not possible. In organizations, love equals comfort. Respect equals distance. Distance increases mystique. Mystique increases rank. Do allow small conflicts to stand, not rush to repair every rupture. Do protect your calendar, not treat availability as virtue. Do withhold immediate enthusiasm, not perform excitement for approval. Now a second case. Promotion cycle. You are one of 2 candidates. You volunteer for extra interim responsibility to prove readiness. The other candidate maintains current scope. You think visibility equals advantage. Leadership thinks one candidate is stable, one candidate is striving. Striving signals desire. Desire signals dependency. Dependency lowers rank. You weren't rejected for lack of skill. You were ranked for visible hunger.
Hunger can be managed. Stability cannot. This is not cynicism. It's structural reality. Hidden hierarchy rewards those who appear self-contained. Sovereign mindset. Internal validation over external confirmation. Fewer updates, more outcomes. In moments of evaluation, calm reduces perceived threat. You will feel temporarily misunderstood.
End the need to be understood immediately, because urgency to be understood is submission disguised as clarity. When you rush to explain yourself, you hand others interpretive authority. Interpretive authority is rank. There's another variable most people ignore: power distance control. It matters when stakes rise. You don't over-familiarize upward. You don't over-intimidate downward. When someone pulls for instant emotional alignment, you slow the pace. Controlled distance signals internal stability. You may feel colder. That's fine. Warmth can follow. Precision must lead. Now observe executive behavior carefully. Senior leaders rarely overshare. They rarely justify tone. They rarely scramble to repair misinterpretation instantly. Not because they are indifferent, because distance protects authority. When you collapse distance too quickly, you flatten your own rank. Connection is valuable, but premature connection is concession. Here's the deeper mistake high performers make. They believe visibility equals power. It doesn't. Visibility without boundary is exposure. Exposure becomes leverage against you. And vulnerability in political environments is logged in the access ledger. Now we sharpen it. Inside the hidden hierarchy, authority shows up three ways. Output authority, you deliver. Frame authority, you direct. Withdrawal authority, you can step back without losing gravity. Most people never build the third. Withdrawal authority means this: you don't attend everything. You don't respond instantly. You don't panic at urgency that isn't structural. Scarcity increases weight. If your absence creates escalation, you hold leverage. If your absence creates relief, you hold burden. You want the first. Now, a high-stakes case. Executive strategy offsite. You are senior but not top tier. Conversation drifts. You see strategic risk. You begin carefully. I might be wrong, but you've already lowered altitude. Another executive says, we're underestimating supply exposure. No apology. The room shifts. Discussion pivots. Same insight, different jurisdiction. You diluted yours preemptively. Why? I want to avoid shame. You feared visible error more than invisible demotion. Invisible demotion compounds. Shame lasts minutes. Rank lasts years. Trade-off truth. Authority requires tolerating short-term discomfort without narrative control. Machiavelli warned that those who attempt to avoid all conflict invite quiet subordination. Harmony is not neutral. Harmony is a political tool. If you constantly preserve it, you become its instrument. Surgical correction. Precision. Do say, that's outside my scope. Not, I'll try to make that work. Do say, we need to clarify ownership. Not, I can take that if no one else can. Do say, that's a strategic call. Not, up to you guys. Language encodes rank. Notice the removal of diminishment. No just. No softeners. No upward inflection. This is not about sounding harsh. It's about sounding settled. Settled people are harder to reposition. Now we expose something deeper. Hidden hierarchy also tracks emotional volatility. Every visible frustration, every defensive over-explanation, every overcorrection. Reaction receipt. A reaction receipt is issued whenever your emotional state becomes predictable under pressure. Predictable reactivity lowers perceived command.
Command is calm under ambiguity. This is where the hijacked nervous system returns. Under evaluation, your body speeds up. You talk faster. You over-clarify. You smile more. These are affiliative reflexes. Affiliation is safe. Safety is low rank. You thought collaboration was leadership. Leadership is controlled separation. Separation creates psychological gravity. One final reality. Rank does not update instantly. You change posture. Others still treat you the same. Reputations have memory. Organizations adjust slowly. You may feel invisible at first. That doesn't mean nothing is shifting. Consistency over intensity. One sovereign act weekly, not 10 in one meeting.
Rank shifts through repetition, not performance. Now imagine this. You stop volunteering reflexively. You slow speech. You protect the calendar. You define scope. Initially, people test you. More requests. More subtle pressure. This is enforcement resistance. If you fold, the system resets you. If you hold, the system recalibrates. Hierarchy is elastic. It stretches to test position. If position holds, the elasticity reforms around it. That is promotion without a title. Because real promotion begins before paperwork. It begins in how people hesitate before interrupting you, how they reference you when absent, how they defer without announcement. That's the shift, not applause, adjustment. Now, let's tighten the cost. You will lose certain approvals. Some will call you distant. Some will call you intense. Some will withdraw a minor warmth. Good. Warmth without respect is containment.
Respect without warmth can evolve. The reverse rarely does. You don't reject warmth. You stop chasing it. There's a difference. Now, zoom out. The hidden hierarchy exists because humans rank stability. In uncertain environments, the calmest perceived actor becomes anchor. Anchor becomes reference. Reference becomes authority. Authority becomes access. Access compounds. This is why two equally competent individuals diverge over 5 years. One manages tasks. One manages perception of inevitability. Inevitability is built through consistency of boundaries. Consistency signals internal governance. Internal governance signals sovereign mindset. And sovereign mindset disrupts extraction. Extraction decreases when the system senses cost.
Cost increases when you are not easily repositioned. Now we close the loop. Earlier, you believed hierarchy was about merit. Then you saw it was about behavior. Now you see it is about perceived replaceability. Replaceability is reduced by clear boundaries, measured speech, selective engagement, tolerance for friction, emotional containment. None of these require aggression. All require discipline. Machiavelli understood something modern workplaces forget. Power is not granted to the most agreeable. It is granted to the most structurally stable. And stability is not softness. It is controlled independence. Even when you are silent, especially when you are silent. This is why some careers plateau quietly, not from failure, from predictability. When your behavior becomes fully readable, you become administratively safe. Safe professionals are kept. Rare professionals are advanced. Rare does not mean erratic. It means internally governed. When leadership cannot easily anticipate whether you will agree, absorb, or comply, they engage you differently. Engagement changes tone. Tone changes access. Access changes trajectory. You don't need dramatic gestures. You need disciplined unpredictability inside stable competence. That combination is difficult to replace. And difficulty to replace is leverage. You are always being ranked,
Not for effort, for leverage. Not for kindness, for consequence weight. Hidden hierarchy is not evil. It is indifferent. And indifference rewards those who do not beg it for validation. Now, return to your 3-day experiment. But add this condition.
Do not tell anyone you are changing. Do not announce boundary shifts. Silence plus adjustment. Measure interruptions, task allocation, response latency, invitation timing. If those metrics shift even slightly, your rank is recalibrating. If they don't, increase consistency. Because perception lag requires patience, and patience is also rank. You don't demand authority. You embody non-negotiability. That is the invisible promotion. One final calibration. If your presence never alters the temperature of a room, you do not yet hold gravity. Gravity is not loud. It is the pause before someone responds to you. It is the subtle shift in posture when you enter. It is the hesitation before dismissal. Hidden hierarchy measures that hesitation, and hesitation is earned through disciplined consistency, not charisma. Not busyness, consistency. You are not trying to dominate the structure. You are trying to become structurally expensive to ignore. That is the difference. You don't withdraw contribution. You withdraw performative reassurance. Because the system promotes perceived leaders, not compliant achievers. Here's your measurable 3-day experiment. Day 1. In every meeting, reduce your total word count by 20%. Track if interruption frequency changes. Day 2. Delay response to non-urgent messages by 1 hour. Track tone shifts. Day 3. State one position without supporting data unless requested. Track resistance. Do not interpret emotionally. Measure structurally. Because the hidden hierarchy is not personal, it is mechanical. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The room was never equal. The system was never neutral. You were always being ranked. The question is no longer whether hierarchy exists. The question is whether you will operate consciously inside it, or continue paying approval tax. We turn philosophy into self-mastery, not by reading power, by practicing it. Collect your data. Return with results, not feelings. Results.